Alright, so this is the shower install. And normally you start either with the slab or the subfloor. However, this was installed back before they had masonry board. So the way they did it back then is the floor where the tile is actually lower than the subfloor by about 3/4 of an inch. So they would put a layer of concrete about 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick, and then they put this metal wire mesh which will cut the crap out of you. And then another layer of concrete on top of that, and then the mortar bed and your tile. So by the time it's over with, you've got that much concrete and tile on the floor. And these are mosaic Mexican tiles. They're almost an inch thick themselves. So I'm not busting that up because it basically acts as my first layer of concrete. So this is where the tub was. This was just subfloor. I put a piece of masonry board down, which gets me close to that. And I cut my I always buy treated, 2 2x4s, which is what my curb's going to be made out of. And then I start laying the masonry board. Usually I start at the bottom and work up. But I had to do this one backwards just due to the plumbing issues I had. So I'm going to cap this hole. This will be my drain. This is the drain cap that you use for this. So I'll cut it, slide this down. You'll put a base of concrete from here to about there. Actually from up here to there. So about that much concrete, give or take a little bit. Then you put your rubber mat on. Take this seal off and your rubber mat goes in between this and this. Cut holes in it to where those bolts slot through it. Let me take this off. Unbelievable. Loosen those 4 bolts up and twist it this way. Then I'll show you how to do this when I get to that point. Cut little X's in here for each one of your bolts. Take this plastic plate off and put your rubber mat over, and then lay this back on and tighten these bolts up, and that seals it in. So today I'm going to glue this in to the drain, lay my first layer of concrete over this. Other thing I got to do is go around and put usually 2x6s or 2x4s. You basically want to fill in all these gaps all the way around because your rubber is going to come up to about here all the way around. So you want to seal all that in. Rubber matting has something to rest against. So I'll fill all those in. Got my masonry board up. They're wanting to replace the shower valve. They wanted to go with something different, so I had to take that back off. So I'll take you through this step by step. This is stage 1. Basically figure out where you want your soap box or your conditioner and soap box. That's where I'm putting it. Put your hardening board all the way up to your ceiling usually. I'll have to do another layer. Shh. Yeah. And make sure you got your little helper. I will nail this in, concrete nails. I'll nail it in down through here. I'll make sure it's level. Nail it in. Put my gap boards all the way around here. And then most of the time, if it was directly on subfloor, I would put tar paper down. But considering this is concrete and that's masonry board, I'm just going to lay the concrete directly over top of what I have. Go ahead and slope it a little bit. This is not as important, sloping this piece. But I'll go ahead and slope it towards the drain. The next layer is where the detail of the slope comes in. So stage 1. Alright, so here's something to note on your first round. your base bed is going to come up to right here. Then you put your rubber in here and you tighten this down even with the floor. So before you get started, to make sure you don't want to get concrete down in the drain because it's got a P-trap underneath there. Once it dries, the only way you can fix that is to cut the P-trap out and redo it. So I leave this on here and I put tape over this. So I'm going to lay concrete all the way up to here. This is all going to depend on how high your floor is going to be. So the floor eventually will be up to here. You just need to kind of run it. It's got to be below the curb. And that's got to screw down some more. So by the time I slope it, that ought to be pretty good. But your base bed comes up to the bottom of this plate. So I'll slope it from here all the way up. You see I put my kick plates in on the bottom. I don't know what you call them. Sideboards. Nailed those in. I usually use 2x6s. These are 2x4s. But I'm already starting out with over an inch of subfloor, or inch of base. I'm going to take you 4 screws and screw them in here and kind of get it level. I have installed these crooked in the past when I first started these, so make sure you got it level. We'll go over so this first step, I'm basically just going to mix some concrete. Go from about the top of that bottom plate, so about 3/4 of an inch around the sides. I'll put concrete all the way up to about there and slope it down here even to this plate all the way around. You can use base mix. For my first layer I usually just use regular Quikrete because the smoothness of it's not that big of a deal. My next layer I'll usually use base mix, which you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, or just regular mortar. I've used both. I've never had a problem with either one cracking or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this in a mixing pan, put it in here and slope it out. I'll put a 2x4 over that hole. I'm going to mix the mud thick enough that it's going to clot it, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, slope it in, tape this up. You don't want to get concrete down in that. You'll fill the P-trap up with it and then you'll have to cut it out. It's not fun. So let's start the next process. Alright, so here's step 1. I usually do these about 4 days, 5 days actually. First layer is the concrete or Quikrete. It's up to about the bottom of the kick plate or baseboard. What do we call that bottom board? And I have slightly sloped it down. Notice I only came up to the bottom of the plastic. You don't want to go all the way to the top because you still got tile and you got the rubber matting and another layer of concrete on top of the rubber matting. So this is not as important that it be flat. I'll probably go over this one more time right before it totally dries, but that is layer 1. Let that dry. Come back tomorrow and put the rubber matting down, the metal over the curb. I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll lay one more base layer of concrete. Then we'll be ready for tile. So I usually do this layer demo and this layer the first day. This is wider than a standard shower. The next day I come back and put the rubber pan in and the other layer of concrete. So there's 2 days. Day 3 I'm usually tiling the walls all the way up. If I'm lucky on day 3 I can also get the floor. Just depends on how long I've got that day. So day 3 tile, day 4 you come back and grout everything. So really a 4-day job. One for demo, one for this layer of the pan, one for the next layer of the pan. You gotta let that dry for 24 hours. Come back and do the tile, and then come back and do the grout. So it is very time intensive. They do make a fast setting concrete. I have used that before. It heats up really hot. Never been called back on it, so I take it worked. But I have to lay HardieBacker board all throughout here. I've got another small area I got to lay HardieBacker in. And then I've got to install tile, so I'm not worried about trying to slam this out quickly. And this is going to be a herringbone pattern all the way up this wall, so it's going to be a pretty neat shower. It'll be glass from here all the way down to about right here. So, part 1 in the books.